evening and happy February 17th. My name's Jackie. Welcome to Equipped Live. I'm here with Greg Winter, and Greg is going to answer some more questions that have been submitted from employees of ESI businesses. So, Greg, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. You ready to jump right in?
I think so.
All right. So our first question we're going to cover tonight, and it might be a long one, so it might be the only question we cover tonight. We'll see. This was submitted by Ken Rittaler and the SPI team. The question is, what is your vision for the IFMC in the next 5 years and 10 years? Is the plan growth? And if so, what does that look like? And then they gave some examples. Is it more technologies, more fields of expertise? What might make up that growth if that is indeed the plan?
That is a big question. Let's start out here. If we focus on the IFMC, and we recognize that the IFMC is an economy that's made up of a number of companies, or what we call BGMs, bonus generating machines, then I'm going to focus on the IFMC level or the economy level. And I'll start really zoomed out with saying my vision for the IFMC would be an increase in the positive impact of the existing IFMC mission and vision by 35% each year. But what does that really mean? And I think a way to maybe calibrate that a little bit for myself and everyone is if we look at the 2025 objectives, and the number one objective for 2025 is to grow the bonus production capabilities of the economy by 35%. How do you do that? Well, you do that by growing the value that we deliver to customers by 35% or by some percentage. So if that's objective number one, then I'm not so sure that that objective needs to change a whole lot over 5 years or 10 years. I think that for an economy, that might make sense. If we look at objective number two for 2025, that is to fix what we consider out of spec companies, so companies that are not within the type of financial and operating parameters that we're looking for. And again, that's a really general objective, and for 2025 we've got that broken down to a number of details and a number of key results that we're shooting for in 2025. But as an objective, I'm not sure that's ever going to change considerably or go away over the next 5 to 10 years. So objective number three then is to what we described as perform preventative maintenance and continuously improve the in-spec BGMs or companies. And there again, that's general enough where I think at the economy level, that's probably going to survive more than just 2025. So what does that look like? What can individuals do to help out with that? Really, most individuals are focused at a company level or at a BGM level. And of course, those are all unique and they all have their unique value proposition. But I think one of the common things that is necessary and creates success is if they can figure out how to do such a good job that they delight their customers by the way they solve the customers' problems. And so I think in general, if that's what they strive to do, that's going to be really good. How do you do that? Well, it starts out with customer discovery work. And if we look back at history, that customer discovery work is what led us from where we started to where we are today. And so I think that's probably going to continue for the next 5 to 10 years. One of the interesting things, if we try to look now maybe at the technology piece, AI is really helpful with customer discovery. And that is one of the things that we've got a team of folks playing with right now. And so that has the potential to pretty dramatically change the way we discover customer problems. So that's a really neat thing to think about and to try to understand. There's enough unknowns where it's hard to tell just where that's going to go. But the one thing I'm really confident in at an economy level is that even if AI is extremely helpful at helping us with customer discovery, it's also going to help our competitors be better with customer discovery. But all that's going to do is really get us to the next bottleneck in the system faster. And that next bottleneck is then going to need attention. And so that might be one of those changes that we see in the next 5 to 10 years, but that's largely an unknown for me. I don't know what that next bottleneck is necessarily going to be, other than in a very general way, probably competency. And it'll probably be the competency to now handle the greater levels of automation and the output of the AI and how to query AI. So I think that's one of the things that might be different from a technology perspective. As far as other details of it, we've got currently some pretty exciting opportunities that are being worked on. Some of those you've highlighted in the Equipped publication already. Some of those we can't really talk about because they're in the patent process, and so we have to keep that stuff secret, essentially, until we get further into the process. But there's some really neat things. Some of those are a 20-year life cycle from the time you have the idea till the time you get to commercial success. And so some of those are going to start playing out in noticeable ways. But I'm not sure I should try to go into enough detail for that right at the moment. I think at the IFMC level, we need to continue to be agile. We need to continue to adapt to wherever the customer discovery leads us. And there's just enough unknowns out there that I think it'll probably, to a casual observer, the IFMC will probably look like a bigger version of what it is today.
So a bit of a follow-up question on that. Why should an individual care about the plan being growth for the IFMC? Like, I'm just going to come to work and I'm going to do the things I'm supposed to do and I'm going to go home at the end of the day. Why is there value for the individuals to care about how they're adding to the plan for the IFMC to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question. If we imagine that there's no growth, then that really becomes a zero-sum game, so to speak, where as the needs change, they don't change in scale, they just change in what's needed. And so now some folks would have competencies that wouldn't be adding value anymore. And so now what do you do with those folks? Well, if you're like the federal government, you just keep paying them, but then the price has to go up. But if you're growing, now there's a probability that you're always going to be able to shuffle the needs around enough. But that doesn't mean that people don't need to adapt and don't need to continuously improve their own hedgehog overlap. But that enables that in a pretty powerful way. But that's a great question.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the individual gets lost Not that the organization is forgetting about them, but the individuals themselves forget to consider what their contribution is to the bigger picture. So, that growth and continuously hone and create more value of yourself in the organization. So, good.
Mhm.
So, moving on then, and I'm impressed that you answered this question with some time to spare. I thought that might take us into 2 sessions of Equipped Live, but here we are.
You're teaching me how to do this, Jackie.
Yeah. So next question, and this is a good question. Tomorrow morning we have the new employee orientation, which we do once a month. It's kind of a high-level orientation for IFMC new employees. So this question fits really well into that, and that's what's on my brain right now. But it says, if we look at the overall IFMC, does a flow chart or timeline exist of when each of the IBUs or BGMs started, 1976 through 2020, well, to 2025 now? So for example, the Wayne Morgan and Omni and Quest submitted this question, and they said, Omni started in 1976, but when did all of the other IBUs or BGMs start? And they recognize that this could be very helpful for training purposes as we try to explain things to new employees who hasn't been here to see all of that growth. So is there somewhere that exists, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it exists, but it's, quite frankly, I'm not sure where to find it. I'm sure the pieces of history do exist. I'm not aware of any nice, neat timeline that would satisfy Wayne and his team that are asking. And that's largely because we just haven't put a priority on it. I guess the question coming to my mind is, do customers really care? Or is that is that something we would find valuable internally? And I tend to focus on the customers and what's really valuable to the customers. And it seems to me that at the BGM level, what the customers really care about is, what is your value proposition? And what we really need to care about is, what parts of the value proposition are in the 20% that get 80% of the results. And I start having trouble connecting the dots to a timeline of the IFMC there. That said, I recognize that when you know the history, you can tell stories about that. And that is, well, storytelling is part of messaging, which messaging is part of marketing. And so that storytelling is a component. I'm pretty sure that's still in the 80% that only gets 20% of the results. And so I'm not sure where we should put that on the priority list. But that said, we are assembling, we're building what we call the stewardship app that probably is some of the best information now about those organizations. And in its current state, probably not where it's going to be in another 6 months or a year. But in another 6 months or a year, I think that's we're going to start seeing timelines for individual business units on there. And I think that'll probably be a big step in the direction that you're talking about.
Okay. There might be someone on this call right now that's on screen that people can see who might take a stab at gathering those dates. And considering everyone knows that it's not you, it's probably me. So that is something I think I will kind of keep track of as, not necessarily the priority project, but something that I might start tracking just so we can create that list, because I do think there could be some value in it for new hires and explaining kind of what that process and what that looks like. So it is 6:15.
Well, I'll give you a hint.
Go ahead.
I'll give you a hint where to start on that, Jackie. it turns out for any of the business units that are out of spec in 2025, one of the starting points is for them to put together their vision in the form of a website that has a timeline on it.
Okay.
So that may be a good place for you to start.
And I believe we just talked about Rentec perhaps putting together a website with something like that. Is that accurate?
That matches my understanding as well.
The dots are connecting. Okay. So we don't have time for another question, but I just want to say that the question that we're going to start with at the next March 17th Equip Live is, I'm really interested in this, and I'm going to put a little teaser out there for everybody. The question to Greg is, have you ever thought of what you'd be doing or what other direction you may have taken if things would not have worked out in the mid to late 70s? So I'm really interested in Greg's answer to this, but we will find out on March 17th the way he will answer that. So Greg, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you everyone for joining us. Do you have any final comments?
Yeah. My rear view mirrors are almost brand new because I hardly use them, but between now and next month, they'll get some use.
Well, good. I look forward to hearing the answer to that. So thank you, everybody. Greg, we'll see you. I'm sure I'll talk to you, but we'll see you in a month.
Okay, thanks. Have a good evening, everyone.